Oh, what a hell of a game we just watched in Soccer We Trusters. What a game. You know what? Hit like and subscribe, and then we'll get after it. Yes! What is up, everybody? Welcome to Brian Mason's favorite podcast. It's Soccer We Trust. How's it going? I've got a bit of an echo right now. It's pretty awesome.
Do you? Oh, I can't hear it on my end, so we're golden.
Okay, that's good. Listen, everybody, US just beat Canada in penalties.
Yeah, you're good. Keep going.
I can't keep going because it keeps echoing in my ear. So I'm going to drop off, Heath.
Okay.
You're gonna
take over,
and I'll be right back.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good, Jimmy. Sounds good. That sounds like the U.S. men's national team's performance tonight. It's just like, I'm going to jump off here for the first 120, and then I'll come back here in penalties. But we're going to get into it quite a bit. One of the worst, I go back to Saudi Arabia and Japan as like a really disappointing time for me. Losing to the Netherlands, that's a crapshoot. Do I think we could have done better? Absolutely. But those games in the lead up made me really nervous about going into the World Cup. But this one, for me, was absolutely horrible. It lacked fight. It lacked punch. It lacked just creativity. It lacked just some of that, energy of what it means to wear the crest. Now, we'll get to the end where we saw what it meant to wear the crest when it really came down to it. I'm not going to excuse the performances, but the U.S. advances. So hopefully Jimmy comes back here any moment. He's going to pop back into the show. But I will say that it was just okay. He's back.
What's up, everybody? I'm sorry about that. I had an echo in my ear and I just couldn't concentrate.
Yeah,
it was kind of like when I'm listening to Chuck. It's like when I'm listening to Chuck. Chuck's not here, by the way. But you said that was the most abysmal performance of all time. I'm trying to catch your sentences.
Yeah, I said I went back to Japan and Saudi Arabia games where I was like, kind of like first time in a long time. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not where I want to be personally, as a group, as a connection point. Before that was obviously 2018 failures where I I was having heart palpitations in this game because the game was so bad that it was the first time in a long time with the national team, Jimmy, where I was like, I don't actually know. And I don't know where it's going to come from. It's not going to come from ideas. It's not going to come from creativity. And I was just hoping, hopefully at some point, representation of the crest matters. When it really comes down to it, we'll get through this game. We'll address it. We'll get better and hopefully improve for the semifinals. But for a lot of that today, I was like, I don't think we're going to get out of this game. Okay. And we're going to have to look at this failure.
Okay. Where are your expectations? Are they based in reality or are they based on something else? Because I look at this game and what I'm most pissed about, and by the way, if neither one of us mentioned the score and you're just like, what was the score? It was 0-0 to like the 89th minute. Brandon Vasquez made it 1-0. Then they scored a penalty to make it 1-1. We went into extra time. They went up 2-1. Then we tied it 2-2 on a tremendous own goal. And then we won in penalties because Matt Turner's an absolute beast. And now we're moving on to the semifinals. So we should have probably started there. But I'm curious, not just you, but for everybody, like what were your expectations? For me, I think what I'm most pissed about, though, to get back to that point, was that we had 6 days to prepare for this game. And it didn't show. And that is what's frustrating to me. It's not even like, I guess what frustrates me, there's only so much a coach can do. BJ, Greg, Jose Mourinho, Pep Guardiola, it's only so. Your players still have to go out there and execute when they see certain things develop in a game. And what I got disappointed with today, especially in the first half, was just Canada's very good at sitting in a block, very organized, right? And if you go from left back to left center back to right center back to right back, and that's your passing sequence, like you're not moving anybody. You're not breaking them down. You're playing ultimately into their hands. And then when we had chances to go forward and take the ball into space, we'd elect to pull it back and play safe. And that is what pisses me off the most. Like, you're not going to make the A team for the U.S. men's national team if you're just playing safe the whole time. Now, I did like it when Busio would take that space. If you're going to unbalance a team that has that type of organization like Canada's going to have and are now known for that, I'd say their identity is a little bit more into that under John Herdman, then you have to take your advantages when they come. And I just thought we were slow to do that, slow to recognize it. We finally faced a team that was going to sit and be just good in the middle of the field, good in the lower. Like, they just knew what they were doing. They have an idea of how they want to play. on both sides of the ball. And they weren't fun to watch either, but at least they were a little bit more organized on the defensive side. So I guess I'm getting back. That's a little bit of my context of where I'm coming from. But when we say it's bad, okay, I get that. We're walking into players that don't play as much. But we had that much time to train. And that was almost one of our worst performances. That's what kind of pisses me off the most.
Yeah.
We had that much time together. And that's where my expectations come from.
Honestly, though, other than fatigue, Jimmy, towards the end, I don't want to train for a week in a Gold Cup.
No, I don't either.
Like I want to have the 4-day schedule and keep me going.
That's what they had.
Like,
that's what they had.
Yeah. And that's not an excuse, because a week is better because you get more time off, you get more time, you go through the periodization plan where you get a really couple intense trainings where you can compete. But actually, Alex, if you could throw that back to starting lineup, let's start there, because I agree with you. There was no quality in the first half. There was no pace to the game. There was no rhythm. There was no courage to create a rhythm and want the ball in tight spots and play the game quickly and really start to earn space on the field. At no point did it look like we were ready to earn space on the field. And, with every minute, Jimmy, that played directly into the way that Canada wants to play. They didn't want the game to settle in.
Do you remember? Okay, wait. I want to insert this because I think it's important. Do you remember we played Canada in Canada in World Cup qualifying?
Yeah,
we were not good in that game, and it felt like we were timid in that game, and we played into Canada's hands.
They punched us in the face early, but
completely different. Yeah, I get it,
yeah.
But a completely different team, or a quote unquote A team in that one, and there were still similar themes that we saw no matter who was on the field because of what Canada was doing. I just want to give Canada a shout out.
Yeah.
Because I thought they were organized and they were ready
to
fight. They were ready to fight. They were ready to fight.
To go through. To be honest, I feel they were hard done on this one. I thought that they played the game plan as the underdog going into this game and did really, really well. But I don't want their performance to be considered so good that it made the U.S. play bad.
I get that.
There was so many bad performances. I think I think the starting lineup was off again. When you look at that, I don't know where Julian Gressel just popped. I don't know where Julian Gressel just popped into the conversation as a starter in our national team. Okay,
but that starting lineup was almost, it's like one player off what we predicted.
Yeah, but and Zendejas.
I thought you had Zendejas in your starting team.
No, I don't have a Zendejas as a starter.
I didn't want to see him. I thought he'd be the one to be taken out, but I wasn't surprised that BJ started.
But fair enough. You give him another chance, right? And he was so poor today. I thought Gressel was poor. I thought Jalen Neal had a bad first half. Got exposed again a couple times in the second half. Passing was decent. Opened up a few moments for us. Learning experience for the young kid. I'll give you that. I thought the rest of the players, when it came down to it, were poor. And poor in what I mean by poor is not just a matter of like, oh, you didn't connect passes. It's just we're supposed to be entering this era where we have enough quality where individual players can get out of tight spaces, solve problems on their own, and then collectively as a group be able to solve problems and things, right? And once the game opened up, yeah, there was some things happening with players who I thought were far better towards the end of basically the game and into stoppage time where the game gets big and everybody's playing on heavy legs. But I was just really disappointed across the board. I was disappointed with Jesus Ferreira. I was disappointed with Miles Robinson. I was disappointed with Mihailovic. There was times where Mihailovic didn't even get the ball and for long periods. And to me, it's really hard. And Jimmy, you know this. We've talked about this a lot. And it's one of the things I'll give Bob Bradley credit for that he said to me, which is like, you need enough guys on your team having good games for you to win any game, right?
Sure.
And this was a night where there wasn't enough guys having good or quality games. And it just got worse and worse and worse in terms of ideas, in terms of creativity, in terms of confidence. And it slowly played more and more into Canada's hands, which ultimately put us into a really bad spot. Having said that, Jimmy, having said all of this, I thought the team played horribly today. Having said that, this team's going on to the semifinals. And you can say whatever you want, Jimmy. You've been in those games. I've been in these types of games, whether at club or international level. And it is a big deal to be able to find a way out of things on a really tough day. Because normally the world doesn't have that kind of vibe for you. You know, you play bad, you get beat.
Yeah.
And in this one, they got one last chance to figure it out going into the semifinals. They'll have a very good Panama squad that they'll play
Panama's
against.
Looking good.
But they're going to get that. This is their final chance. They were able to grind out of that because Matt Turner stood on his head, you know, and they should have been able to close out the game. They didn't. They got warning after warning. Somehow we got out of this, but these performances, BJ's going to have to take a look at the starting lineup. I was disappointed that Roldan didn't start. He was one that I've liked. People hate him. But with regard to this group and this national team and when he's been on the field in this Gold Cup, he was one that I thought had earned some time. I know Gressel's good at putting the ball into dangerous spots and things like that, but he's a player that I think is
taker as well. Good set piece taker.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Putting the ball into good spots, getting the ball in front of the goal in theory, right? But he's also a player that I had basically conceded that bring him off the bench. He's good. Cade Cowell, bring him off the bench. You see the things that he can do when the game opens up a little bit and he's not forced to make the game himself, right? Far more impactful. I wouldn't go to the next game and say start Cade Cowell because I think he's struggled in this Gold Cup. But I guess what I'm saying is this was an opportunity for a lot of guys to step up. We knew it was going to be close. We knew it was going to be close. It was not going to be a blowout. I didn't expect Ferreira to have a hat trick or Vasquez to come in and dominate or like any of these types of things. We knew it was going to be close, but it was so poor in so many moments that I have trouble pinpointing a single player that I can say, wow, they proved themselves tonight. Or yeah, exactly. Matt Turner, but obviously he's Matt Turner. I don't know.
No, I mean, so let's
also, Jimmy, real quick, before we go any further,
sure.
The other thing that I think was a massive thing for this team that played again directly into Canada's hands, halftime scraps that went into the locker room that made it personal for Canada, right? Again, I think Canada should have won this game. I think Canada deserved to come out of this somehow, some way, going on to the semifinal. And the halftime scrap where we got caught up in it, I don't know what happened, but I don't know if you saw it, Jimmy, but it went from the field. Literally, there's videos of them in the tunnels just scrapping, like full, like 20, 30 person, like that wave of like whatever.
Those are my favorite parts of the game, to be honest.
Yeah, they are. But you know, Jimmy, when you are the ones that are not in great form, you are playing into a team that literally came to life a year ago or a year and a half ago with the chip on its shoulder of everybody wrote us off. You know, we're going to punch back now. We're tired of being bullied. And I think that played into the fight of saying, hey, you know what? Well, these guys are making it personal. Let's make it
Herdman was already building that narrative 5 days ago, right?
Well, that's my point is why give them, we continue to feed them more. And I'm not saying play soft on the field or don't go into the challenges because you should. But all I'm saying is that those types of things are I think, a mental edge to a team that lives and dies by the mental side of the game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, I agree with that.
Died, but like...
I know. I hear you. I think what's interesting, you know, you and I have discussed this. I don't know when the last time we said this on the pod, but you need what the majority of you guys playing at a 7 or 8 out of 10 to win a game.
Yeah. And
we found a way to win with a lot of guys that were 4s and 5s, maybe
4s and 5s. Yeah.
So yeah, that definitely speaks to something. And I think there were moments where you could say, I really like the decision-making from Gianluca Busio, for instance. He found himself in the box a lot tonight. He found himself in areas.
I'll give him the credit for tonight. Yeah.
Listen, he was trying to drive the game a little bit in a way that we needed. And it felt like at times, and I want to make sure this is very clear for everybody listening or watching. It's not always the responsibility of the player on the ball to have to solve these problems by themselves. They need support options. They need people to pop up in certain ways. Yes. And so to get back to what my little rant earlier on, if you have a player, and I was looking at DeJuan Jones in the first half in particular, he wouldn't even look up at Zendejas. Like he just get the ball and he was playing back to Jalen Neal. Mm-hmm. And when you've been on the field enough, Heath, that if your teammates know that you're not even looking forward, they're not even going to go support you. And then it becomes this snowball effect where, okay, DeJuan Jones does want to play forward. And everybody's like, what the hell are you doing, man? You've been playing backwards the whole time. Why am I going to, now you need me to support? You know, so I just thought we were a little off in that type of stuff. So when Busio gets the ball, and so, you know what, I'm going to break the line and break the lines in midfield with running and try to do something. And then I was disappointed for him because he'd get himself in a good spot. He draws somebody from the back line towards him. And then you just have Julian Gressel standing out wide. Like you didn't actually end up shifting anybody once he makes this little simple pass. And you could see Busio going, well, shit, man. Like, I don't know. I guess we got the ball farther down the field, but it's not leading. It's not dangerous. It's not leading into that next domino to fall. Mm-hmm. And does Ferreira need to pop up in those pockets? Does he need, like, our angles felt a little bit off, the supporting of the ball. And it comes down to timing. And that's why you do passing patterns in practice. That's why you work on team shape on both sides of the ball and so on and so forth. And that's what I'm most pissed about because we had this type of performance after having 6 days to work on this stuff. Had it been just like, hey, they played 2 days before and we're just throwing these guys out there, I think I'd have been a little bit more okay with how disjointed it was. But because we had so much time to prepare, and because BJ, right, we're trying to evaluate him as a coach, and I'm sure MLS teams are looking, hey, dude, is this a guy that we want to consider to be a head coach? And does Greg, hey, do we want to keep him on the staff or whatever it is? This was his best time to really line it up and get guys going and organized, and it was flat. And I don't know what you felt coming out of the second half. I felt like there was a little bit more urgency, but the game changed when we put on our subs. I mean, that's when it changed, and it felt like these guys, because you've been on the bench before, all of a sudden you're watching, and you think, okay, if I get into this game, I can do X, Y, or Z. I can see where I could have an impact on the team. And obviously when you're an attacking player, that changes a lot because you have more influence on how the game's going to go going forward. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I fully agree. No,
I blacked out there right there. What did I say?
I think the subs that came in made all the difference. And I know we want to see what BJ's made of. I think he got the starting lineup wrong. I think he got the subs right. I think they got the energy.
What would you have done different?
And it came down. What do you mean?
Well, starting lineup. What would have been your starting lineup then? You haven't given us.
I would have had Roldan on, and I wouldn't have started Zendejas.
That was my first one, and then Charlie kind of talked me out of it. But I
could be wrong. Maybe I did have him in my lineup, but like he was one that I, at least in this tournament, I was like I get it because he's got experience. I get it, but like I'm just not seeing the impact right now.
I get it.
And over a series of moments. But for me, when I see the subs come on, I think they made a big difference. And I think it was really important to see that. Now, looking at BJ, this team went through. You can say all you want. Who were we more critical of? BJ today, who I think maybe had a few choices wrong because he trusted in players that I don't think performed well. The whole team didn't play well. That's not all on him. You can't make every player turn up, right? You put out the team, and you still want to have a few of these guys stand up and be leaders. I thought Busio actually did that really well today. He even looked bigger and stronger.
I'm saying in moments. Like, I mean, overall, I'd say the team probably at a 4 or 5 level. But there were moments where guys did do certain things that you expected from them at times. And obviously you want to stack those up and build something that's a little bit more positive. And Vasquez comes on, holds the ball up, but then he loses one. And then, then he scores, and it's super funny how it all works out. But whatever, we're in the semifinals. Listen, we're going to take our first break of In Soccer We Trust. When we come back, we're going to talk about this some more because we can't help ourselves. So don't go anywhere.
You going to start the engine sometime soon, Erica?
Do you know the odds of all of us being here at this time? It's improbable, yet here we are, together.
Hold on to your saddles.
Welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Cream Cheese Conradinho Conrad, alongside the Heartbreak Kid, Hollywood Heath Pearce, and not Charlie Davies. We don't even know if he's real anymore. But and we're talking US-Canada. US beats Canada in penalties after a pretty thrilling 2-2 result after it was 0-0 after 89 minutes. But we found ourselves having a pretty exciting game into extra time as well. And now the US take on Panama in the semifinals. Mexico's going to take on Jamaica. That is a tasty one. That was one I was looking forward to, and that should be very, very good. We will get back into the U.S. game, Heath, but let's talk about Panama because they lit up Qatar 4-0.
Yeah, and got that one wrong, Jimmy. Sorry about that. I got that prediction wrong. Hopefully nobody placed a bet on that, but I was like, they'll fight like they did against Mexico. Yeah, you had Panama. Chuck had Panama.
Ismael Diaz scored the fastest hat trick in Gold Cup history, 3 goals in 9 minutes. He is a handful
by their fans.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. You can't even. He should have had 6 though. In fairness, he had that type of, he had some clear cut chances and missed those 2, but he got 3, and they are going to be tough. And I think of the teams I've seen so far in the Gold Cup, Heath, their identity feels pretty clear, and I feel like that kind of speaks to their manager and what they're trying to do. But once you start to play a team that's a little bit more organized, we saw it tonight. It all of a sudden, when you win back-to-back games 6-0 and then you play a team that's organized, it's just like, wait a second, why isn't this as easy as it was before?
Yeah, I will say this, Jimmy, about Panama, is that I think the U.S., and we've said it before about Canada. We've said it about even Jamaica, and the way that the U.S. matches up, it's a game of margins between those teams, right? Against the Panama and against some of the other, I think, Central American styles of play, the U.S. kind of like, I think, matches up better in other ways where we're going to be exposed in some ways. And then I think that there's more clear ways of which we can exploit, right? Because Panama's going to try to play against the U.S. They're going to try to, they're going to try to play the game a certain way. They're going to be physical, but they're going to try to play a certain way. And it's going to be a little bit of a, who's going to win the midfield battle. Like, it's a little bit more of like winning positions on the field and executing in moments of vulnerability versus, I think, Canada, which is, I was talking to Marcelo Balboa actually about this the other day, and he was saying, like, I was like, who do you think against Canada, U.S. or Canada? He's like, I have no idea, because it is margins between these players, right? The quality, the names on the back of the shirts, it is just comes down to like the smallest of margins of quality. These are mostly, or by and large, all MLS starters or around that, right? And it's a game of margins when you put it together into a package. Having said that, the U.S. played horribly, but I think against Panama, the U.S. And I didn't think Canada played great either, but at least like we can say that they, I don't know, made it hard for the U.S. as the favorites. But Panama, I think, will give us some headaches, but I do think we have a turning point. A lot of lessons learned for some of the young players in our team. No excuses. I've had plenty of bad performances in my career. They should have that discussion. And right now there's somebody in a lab just chopping up Jalen Neal's mistakes. Chopping up Matt Miazga, that he crossed his body to try to block that shot, and then going back and saying, you know what, that could have been, that was his fault. However,
Miazga's got to listen. I know that I heard Landon Donovan say it on television. I hear you say it now. He got his feet crossed up. He needs to go address the ball like 15 yards earlier, not drift into the box before.
I agree.
Okay, so I'm as the resident center back of Insoccer we trust. Yeah. Miazga can't drop off like that and then give Schaffelberg that much space to potentially allow what happened.
I agree. But if you take
he's
the
got
play
to
back,
just address it earlier, or Ferreira's got to foul him earlier.
Yeah, exactly. You take the play back. Ferreira was there to make a play, and he just lunged that air instead of just go back and take the foul. Make the play. Yeah. And that was the pivotal moment. Like that, Jimmy, I was writing and rewriting my tweet of just basically saying this is on Ferreira in that moment. That is a guy who's been in big games. He's been in those types of moments. Yeah. I don't care if you're not having a good match going forward or if you can't score. Your right back got pulled out of position. You're there to make the play. Make the play. And I was like livid about that because it's the smallest details in a knockout round. You want to do that against St. Kitts or whatever and just be like, my guy's got it. That's fine. But you know how it is. Generally, when you break down any play and they run it back, there's a series of errors that lead to the goal. It's very rarely the last play where it's like, I hit a deflection and scored. Like that was one of 3 things or 4 things that went wrong. Right. And there was those things need to be fixed for sure. For sure. All right. So obviously a lot to talk about with regard to our team and then preparing for Panama as well. And I look forward to doing that preview show for everybody that enjoys the content that we bring to you. Now, in the other semifinal or the other 2 quarterfinals, Mexico beat Costa Rica 2-0. It took the second half for Mexico to hit the back of the net. There was Orbelín Pineda scored a penalty in the 52nd minute. Eric Sanchez scored late to seal the deal at 2-0. It's the 9th straight semifinal appearance for Mexico, so they definitely like having success in this tournament. They're unbeaten all time against Costa Rica in the Gold Cup, 6 wins and 3 draws. And then in the other one, Jamaica 1-0. Maribel gets the winner in the second half as well for Guatemala. Guatemala, I thought they played well, man. I was excited for them the whole tournament. I mean, I thought they went straight at Jamaica. Andre Blake had to make a couple good saves to preserve the clean sheet and get the result. And you know what? Damari Gray, too. I feel like Jamaica's always been a couple players away from really unlocking their full potential. And I think Damari Gray has been an incredible piece. He is a hell of a player. And if they do end up winning this tournament or having a great run, which is looking like, semifinals, fine. But if they can get past Mexico and get into that final, they got to be... go ahead. Can I just say about Guatemala? That's a team that it's amazing the way that they play and just pulls you apart. And that's the one thing I will say about Jamaica in this one. Jamaica looked really good at times. They've got some unbelievable players. At times they were really, really disciplined, but other times they allowed that game to get wide open. And that's what the U.S. needed to figure out against Canada is just get the game open on them, right? Earn some space somewhere on the field to be able to play. Speed the game up, slow the game down, play over the top, come underneath. Just have a variation in some patterns of play. And Jamaica have some individually and collectively throughout the game, some amazing sequences. But Guatemala, they've got some really tidy players on the ball, and I feel like they had their moments too to be able to potentially keep that game alive, or at least go into to extra time. But they're a team that, like, they spread you out, and they sort of hedge a little bit, leave a few players forward, and if you don't figure out how to punish them, they spring out, and there's like 5 guys already ready to go at you. And they gave Jamaica some headaches, and that's something Jamaica's going to have to figure out just in terms of that transitional game. And that's where I think the U.S. has a little bit more balance and discipline over time when you play against teams that want to open you up, or maybe not be as disciplined going forward because, you know, in exchange of that, they're going to leave players up, and we're going to keep that balance. So that's what I'm hoping they come out with against Panama. But I couldn't tell you how the U.S. is going to play against Panama. But yeah, Guatemala, really, really good. I think, and I said it to a friend, they might have an outside shot at doing some damage in World Cup qualifying, knowing that it's an expanded,
sure.
You know,
sure.
cup.
I'd be excited for them.
And
They've never qualified for a World Cup before, so it'd be very, very exciting for them. All right, so the semifinals are set. Both of these games are going to happen on Wednesday, July 12th, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern will be USA Panama, and then Jamaica Mexico will be right after that. 30 minutes after that game ends, Jamaica Mexico will kick off. The final will be this Sunday, July 16th, and that should be a lot of fun. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This Final Four is pretty good. Panama's look good. Jamaica, Mexico, U.S. obviously probably the biggest names in the tournament, or with all due respect to Canada, who got eliminated by us, unfortunately. In terms of form, you'd almost have to say maybe Jamaica and Panama, if you just go by form, would be the ones that would book their ticket to the final. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly say that. If to be
just
fair,
form. I mean, Mexico's been okay too.
I agree, but if in Mexico want to do the same thing that Guatemala did, and I saw some holes in Jamaica's, like not over 90 minutes, Jamaica were really good. But when they were vulnerable and they were pulled at like 5 players going forward, 5 players staying back, they looked exposed at times. And that's where Mexico will just chew you up. And yeah, they're not the Mexico of the past, and they're not, you know, clinical in the few chances that they get, or the many chances that they get as of right now. But I it's hard for me to write that off. But I certainly think U.S. plays like this again, they lose to Panama for sure. If
I don't expect
Mexico,
that. I don't expect
Mexico.
that.
I don't expect that either. But based on where we're at, the players and the performances, we put out technically, Jimmy, our best team. And our best team of all those players outside of Busio and Turner, I'm having trouble going, who really showed us something to be like a lock starter for the next game above some of the others that maybe came off the bench. I think this game may have caused some headaches for BJ. And so I think looking at the performances of this tournament up till now, I go back to the U.S. against Jamaica, the U.S. against Canada, and these two, they're 2 big games, the only big games. They've been poor. So I've got to give an edge to Panama. And then on the flip side, Mexico, okay throughout. But Jamaica, to me, again, you watch their attack, you watch the quality of players they have, you look the combination play, you see their comfort on the ball, you see other details of their game. I think you're right. I think that might be, it makes me sick to my stomach saying that, but like, yeah, might be a Jamaica-Panama final.
So Jamaica, Mexico have played, well, they've obviously played a lot, but in the last 3 games, 1-1 in the Nations League back in June of last year. And then in World Cup qualifying, or maybe it was this year, but World Cup qualifying, it was 2-1 to Mexico in both games, but they both had to score really late in both of those. So there's something about Jamaica that causes Mexico some headaches, and I'm curious to see now with the additions of Damari Gray, a little bit of confidence, maybe a little bit more organization in different ways, if they can get past a Mexican team that seems to have found an identity under their own interim manager. So that'll be a fun one to watch again.
How'd they do, by the way, in qualifying? I think Mexico got a
Jamaica?
late goal against Jamaica at Azteca.
Yeah, it was an 89th minute.
Yeah. And then in Jamaica, was that a draw as well?
No, it was they got like a kind of crappy red card against them, Jamaica, and it was 1-1 at the time. Then Alexis Vega scored like in the definitely 83rd, 84th minute. I remember watching that one going, Mexico got so lucky to get out of there with the 3 points.
Yeah, against 10.
Yeah, and then it was 1-1. I thought
2 goals after the 80th minute. Yeah,
Diego Coca, I feel like they just had a Nations League 1-1. That was like one of Diego Coca's first jobs in charge. I might be talking out of my butt, which is more what Chuck does than I do. Chuck taking strays today.
Where is Chuck? He's
but
sleeping
okay.
already. That's why.
Yeah, he's probably sleeping. So producer Alex wants us to let everybody know that Matt Turner has now saved 14 of the 29 penalties he's faced in his career, which is pretty crazy. And that's not even like penalty shootouts. That's just like the one-offs that you have in games. I wonder what it would look like in penalty shootouts because he saved 2 more tonight. I mean, the guy's a beast in goal. Would you call him your man of the match for the U.S. if we had to designate that person, Heath, or do you have somebody else?
I wanted to give it to Vasquez, but clearly they didn't want him to have it because he got
maybe own goal gets the best player for us because that was a tidy finish. But Busia found himself in a good spot, and you got to.
And I thought I think he's been a player that's fallen off the map and a player that I thought at times wasn't as impactful in the national team as I had hoped. But again, when I look at his game, I always saw him as a little bit like sort of frail, right? A little bit more Pirlo-like. Not going to get into the challenge, not scrappy, some of these types of things. But I think he's added some elements to his game. He
kind of has the same body type as Pirlo, it looks like.
Yeah, and but like he seems more up for a scrap, up for a fight, up for like taking over some moments, being physical, holding the ball with the game to his back and things like that. So he would be my secondary one. But yeah, it's got to go to Turner for me in this one.
Okay, so let's kind of pick apart, like kind of go line by line a little bit here.
Okay.
What do you do? Miles Robinson, I haven't seen him be this, let's say, uncertain, because I thought, and any times I'd seen him previous, he looks pretty locked down. I mean, there's a certain steadiness to him that I really like about his game. And it's like, okay, I put this guy in my team. I know exactly what I'm going to get. And today it just felt like there was some vulnerability there that I hadn't seen from him in a while. Jalen Neal, though, do you young player, not surprised that there's a couple downs here, but do you roll him out for the next one, or do you go with Miazga? I'm not a Miazga fan.
I'm not a Miazga fan either. I just think that his game is just a little too neutral for me. There's not something that I see in the time that he's had in the past and now where he's really elevated to being like either a killer in the air or a killer passer. Like he's solid, but he's solid in the way that I think Aaron Long is solid. I think there's better play. I think Jalen Neal has a way better pass with the ball. He's been getting skinned, by the way, in this tournament. But I love it for him because that's going to teach us and teach him a lot.
Well, yeah, it should.
As long as they don't score.
In theory, it should help him develop quicker. So does BJ do the Zendejas route and continue to roll him out and kind of just trial by fire and we sink or swim with however Jalen Neal's going to play and hope that Matt Turner makes any saves based on the mistakes? Or do you go to someone who's over 30 that's played a little bit? I mean, I would prefer to stay with Jalen Neal and just roll the dice because that's what I think this Gold Cup should be for in some capacity. But
I think we'll get a Rob.
I can see there be some reluctance now,
Long.
given that Jalen Neal didn't kill it tonight.
I could see him going Robinson and Long. But look, Jalen Neal, I think if you look at a few of his passes that break lines, that penetrate, things like that. I know on the broadcast, Alexi was like, you got to defend first. And I fully agree. I don't disagree with that at all. But I'm in the player development game, baby. You
didn't
get scored on. Like, this is a player that
I wish we would have brought more younger players.
If we were identifying it, look, I know as we go deeper, the harder it is for BJ to probably roll out players that I think haven't necessarily rewarded him with the trust that are on the younger side. But I say go with Jalen Neal again. I don't think he had a couple. It's basically 2-3 moments in a game where when you get against the good teams, you get scored on, right? But I think against Panama, why not? I don't think Panama are so much better that you can't. Now, if we go into a final, I'm gonna have a lot more to figure out of like how you do it. But for Panama, I'm saying play Jalen Neal. Keep him going.
Okay, I'm the same, but I think it's a conversation worth having because he wasn't lights out tonight, and neither was Miles. And so I wonder if that's going to make the coaching staff reconsider how they want to play moving forward. Brian Reynolds, I thought was fine. My issue with Brian Reynolds tonight was that Julian. Well, my issue with him was because Julian Gressel was in front of him. Like, if we want to talk about the starting lineup, when you put a Julian Gressel in who likes to hang by the sideline, totally cool. But you can't have a Brian Reynolds who also likes to do the same right behind him. It's like they just get into each other's way, and Brian Reynolds gets a little more handcuffed in what makes him special. And so you kind of negate that. You could have potentially taken out Brian Reynolds and gone with like a back three and had Julian Gressel be the right wing back, where I think that's where he plays is strongest. And we could argue Brian Reynolds does the same. So it felt like we duplicated a player there when we didn't need to. And we could have potentially brought in a winger that operates a little bit more centrally, or can in those spaces, because there's half spaces, so that Brian Reynolds could be our width. I thought there was a bit of a big miss there. DeJuan Jones, again, my only issue with him is I thought he played too safe for a good majority of the game, but he also dropped in a dime to Brandon Vasquez for the header. So I like when he's looking to play forward. I like that he identified that there was a one-on-one there against Vitoria, the center back, and he put in a peach of a ball that Brandon Vasquez could hit with power. I wish we had that more recognition. It felt like when we were hitting crosses in, especially when Ferreira was the 9, that dude was 1 versus 3 a lot. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, Canada just allows Brandon Vasquez to be one-on-one with Vitoria. And at least there was a recognition from our team, hey, this is a good time to whip it into the box, as opposed to kind of the hopeful crosses, which is kind of what felt like we were hitting earlier on. So I don't know if you wanted to make any changes to the outside backs, but I think I think Brian Reynolds, my issue with him was more that Julian Gressel was in front of him, which isn't really his fault.
Yeah, and then also for me, there was just so many, as you mentioned, square and negative passes, and a lot of that I think is in the back line. That's the movement in front of them. It's also James Sands, who I think by and large had a pretty easy go for most of this tournament because he's got time and space. Started with a double pivot with Aiden Morris, where they were playing, you have another midfielder next to you there. And then the rest of the tournament was controlling teams. And this is one where you start to see the game's got to be faster. You got to have more ideas. You got to be on the half turn. You got to be more connected to players. And I think he was one that struggled to help us advance the ball forward. Not to say that's the six's job, but I think modern six has to, modern six has to be able to connect those lines together, because maybe I keep it the same.
That's what we talked about with Tyler
more
Adams, though, right? We want that from Tyler Adams as well.
Yeah,
that's where we think he has a little bit of maybe a lack of consistency. Sometimes he can, sometimes he can't. And I do agree with you. The modern six has to be able to make those line breaking passes.
Yeah, and I'd like to just see again more connected passes between the midfield 3. Right, at times they felt so pulled apart that when one of them got it, you look and the other one's like not even in this TV screen, kind of check back off the shoulder.
Right.
But that's about movement. That's about timing. That's again about patterns of play, sharpness, confidence. And I thought tonight was a night where some of our individuals should have been able to say, got a man on my back, I'm going to spin out and be able to change the point of attack, or I'm going to do something individually that changes the dynamic of our possession, because everything was just like up, back, over. And if you're a team with the intelligent players that Canada has, that's going to fight and scrap together, you're like, okay, this is easy. You're going to keep the game in front of us. We're just going to shift together. Yeah, you're never going to make us second guess and go, oh man, like we need to like wake up and do something different.
All right, we're going to take our last break of In Soccer We Trust. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the midfield and the front line, and then some comments made by one of our friends, Landon Donovan, about Christian Pulisic. I'm sure you guys have already seen it, but we'll chime in with our 2 cents. So don't go anywhere.
Magisterial here.
Artilharia do Campeonato Brasileiro.
Welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy alongside Heath and not Chuck, but we are having a lot of fun here. Gold Cup quarterfinals are finished. The U.S. beat Canada in penalties. Luckily, I think luckily might be the right word to use in this one. They'll be facing Panama on Wednesday in the semifinals, and Mexico, Jamaica in the other semifinal. And it's shaping up to be a pretty fun Final Four. So we're excited to see how everybody plays. But getting back into our conversation, Heath, about the lines. Let's talk midfield. We did kind of wing backs, goalkeepers, center backs, that type of stuff, and a little bit about James Sands. But Mihailovic, Busio, I did want to explore that one step further, because I agree with you that it felt disjointed. And I think there's an element of what Canada's doing, of course, to clog that space, that these guys had the luxury of playing St. Kitts and then playing Trinidad in back-to-back games where, okay, maybe it was tight like that for the first 10 or 15 minutes, but then at some point everything loosens up and the game becomes a little bit easier, and then you score, and then they get down on themselves and the space gets even bigger. And then it's just a kind of, kick around with your buddies at the park. And then it's not much of a game. But Canada was up for it. We knew they were going to be, and that was going to provide a different opportunity to see these players under some real pressure, trying to solve problems, which we have an issue no matter, even with our first team, right? Against Netherlands. I still am disappointed, not only in the coaching staff, because I thought they could have made adjustments at halftime and didn't, but also in the players for not solving problems in real time and taking the kind of what the Dutch were giving them. And even tonight with Canada, can we solve those issues? They clearly have a plan. They're sticking to their plan, and they're not going to get out of that plan until you expose them. And there was one sequence in the first half, Heath, where it's like, here we go. From one defender to the next defender to the next defender. We're not moving anybody around. But then one of our center backs, I think it was Miles, or it could have been Jalen, played a nice, probably a highly dangerous through, like a pass into the middle of the field, but it unlocked the pressure from Canada. We ended up getting a corner. I think we ended up getting a good chance off of it. And there just wasn't enough of that. But I saw a glimpse of what was possible when everybody, the timing of the movement was very good, that there was a good third person running. And I wish I had seen more of that. That's the evolution of the team, especially because we've been through this. It's not like this is the first game of the tournament. Now we've been together for over 2 weeks. There should be some of that. I hate this word. It's a corporate word, but synergy, right? Between the guys. And that was lacking tonight.
Synergies, Jimmy. Synergies.
Synergies. And Mihalovic, that's why we want, like, we're all clamoring for more Mihalovic. I want to see more of him. And tonight, he didn't get maybe the ball that he wanted in certain areas. That's not, again, it's not always on him. But if you want to break into the first team consistently, you got to be a guy that, like, okay, this game or the opponent is taking something away from me tonight. How can I still have an influence and impact on this game? And I don't think Georgi Mihalovic did a good job of figuring that out. That I'm just using him as an example. He's not alone.
Oh yeah, no, but I agree, right? Like if you're a player that prefers to be facing the game when you have the ball at your feet, then you've got to figure out how to get that ball into good spots, right? But you also have to be able to create things individually. And I thought that he did that previously, and I was really excited about him. Look, I also want to say that this is not our A team. It's probably not even our B team. These players have an opportunity. It was a completely off night as a group and as a team. We'd be having a very different conversation right now if the U.S. lost in the quarterfinals of this Gold Cup, Jimmy. They found a way to get out of it, and a really bad performance that we didn't deserve to get through. But it's not on me. I didn't get them through. You didn't get them through. They got themselves through somehow.
That's fair. Good point.
That's at least a silver lining to a really bad night for this team and some really bad individual performances. And the hard part when you go to break down a game like this is usually, like we said, we can go line to line, and it's really hard to like identify or say, you know what, this player shouldn't, or that player shouldn't get the next run. The whole team was bad tonight, other than what the two players that we discussed, right? I think bad is maybe extreme, just indifferent.
Sure.
And which I think is bad. When you're the favorite team, you shouldn't be indifferent as a group or as individuals. And I think not enough players did enough tonight, which is really disappointing. I hope, although fortunately, we don't have a bunch of other players that we could change for the next game that I think he's going to go to or trust.
No, this is a great segue. Let's talk about the wingers then, because I think those are two spots where you can change. I've tried to be as neutral as possible on Zendejas. Honestly, I was excited he wanted to play for us over Mexico. Obviously I've seen him score and do some great things for Club America, his club. There's upside there that I can see, but for whatever reason, it's not translating to anything impactful. I'm like, what is this? I'm waiting for something to happen. And I'm done. I think I'm done waiting. I'm ready to let somebody else take that opportunity now.
Did you just break up with Zendejas?
I did. I'm not swiping right on Zendejas. It's gonna take a lot, I think, for him to get me back on his side. And it's not that the work rate's there. His desire to want to make plays. In some ways, I think he's just trying too hard. And so how do you work with that? Because it seems like, because then it ends up you get into your own way. You work with it if you're the coach, like, hey, just play what you see, play quick, play and move. Because that's when I think he's at his best. Get it, play it, move. But there were times too where he would have a chance to shoot and there's like 8 guys in front of him. And instead of maybe making the little pass out wide, because he can recognize there's 8 he just shoots right into like 8 guys. And those little things piss me off. Like, dude, just play simple. It's clearly got 8 guys in front of you. So I was, these little notes I'm taking of him. I can see his value, but maybe my expectations were a little higher than they needed to be with him. I'm ready to give Cade Cal, like, speaking about Jalen Neal, I'm ready to give Cade Cal, and let's just roll with a younger player and give him more experience in a big game. And I think Panama's they're going to be tough. And then on the other side, I don't know if Julian Gressel was the right fit for tonight. I don't think he lived up to the starting position tonight. I know that we talked about Roldan going into this one. I thought when Roldan came on, there's a certain calmness to him that I appreciate, and I think that's just experience. So
it's never gonna be great. It's never gonna be what we hope our winger's gonna be with Roldan, right?
But
you're gonna know what you're gonna get, and I think there's a predictability
but if you bring Roldan,
to his effort.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but if you bring Roldan on, it just gets me back to my Brian Reynolds point, right? Brian Reynolds really has more of a channel to run into because Roldan will slot in a little bit more central, and I think that's important to get the most out of Brian Reynolds.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you like 18 times tonight.
No, it's okay. It's tough to like finish a thought after a game like this. But yeah, I think when I go back to where the lineup that I wanted, as I said, if Zendejas was on the other side, then maybe I would start him. But I would look at Cade Cowell again. I think he struggled. I don't think there's another option. And Roldan.
Well, okay, let's say it like this: Brandon Vasquez, you start him and have Ferreira drop off his shoulder because
I don't see why not at this point, right? Because if you're
playing more
Panama,
central midfield at that point, and because Gressel was still on the field, so you could put
honestly,
Ferreira a little bit higher.
On paper, I think Panama are the third best, like probably the team we should be most excited to play against of Mexico, Jamaica, and Panama as the final four teams. And so I think we do have a little bit. I think even though Panama are very good, I think it will afford us the ability to play a Cade Cowell and a Roldan, and then have you can go with Ferreira again, where I think he will get the ball. I don't think Panama will sit deep against us. I mean, maybe they will, but if they do, that's a little bit of like BJ's got to basically break that down and say if that's the case, then we can't have Ferreira and Busio being the only ones going forward.
Yeah.
Then let's put in Vasquez and let Jesus Ferreira play off the shoulder. Then you decide between Busio and Mihailovic. At this point, maybe you go with Busio. And then at halftime, if that's not working, then just make the change. If Vasquez not getting the ball or being impactful with all the things that make him good, then you can make the change. Or Ferreira, if he is. I mean, they're obviously going to keep Ferreira on the field. But I think you can make that change where we need to be able to look at these teams differently. And even at times, and we're seeing this happening more and more in the modern game, Jimmy, is let Ferreira play up top with Vasquez for a little bit. When you can occupy center backs and you can find the ball, even a relief ball under pressure, just to lump it up, let Vasquez hold it. And every time he checks backs to hold it, Ferreira runs in behind or another Busio runs in behind. It is a style of game that's starting to come back to life in terms of popularity. And I think it can be really impactful. Instead of us having to be the team that has to pass through every single line to get it to our striker, occasionally hit it to Brian Ching. Let him fight for the ball and bring it down. Draw a foul, earn some space on the field.
I'm glad you brought that up because there were times where we were hitting long balls where half the team wasn't even, they're like all checking back. And then we hit a long ball and there's like nobody there to win the second ball. That needs to be addressed as well because that happened a lot and I got a little pissed about it too. And I was yelling at the TV.
St. Louis City, lump it long, lay it off.
I'm just watching the game by myself and I'm yelling because it frustrates me when Miles or Jalen decided to hit a long ball and there were like 7 guys checking back or whatever, and he hits it, and then there's nobody there for the second one. That pisses me off. I hate when that happens. All right, before we let everybody go, and I got to sit back, and I'm sure Heath does as well. We got to sit and process all these thoughts and sleep with these things in our frontal lobes and figure out what players. But we have a show tomorrow. We have a show tomorrow, which will include our preview for Panama. Okay, and the game again is on Wednesday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm excited for that one. But before we let everybody go, our old teammate and friends, Landon Donovan, said these things about Christian Pulisic, and I'm going to read you the quotes. I'm going to give you my thought, Heath, and then I want to hear from you. Okay. So Landon,
you want to save this for tonight, or you want to do it for tomorrow? You want to do it tonight?
No. We got to do it tonight.
Okay.
There's not much to say about it. There's not much to say about it.
Okay.
So Landon Donovan said that Christian Pulisic, excuse me, don't have to say his name, should have moved to MLS. This is a quote. The World Cup is coming in 3 years. This is a once in a lifetime tournament. He's going to be in the prime of his career. His life as a soccer player, his earning potential. I'm sure he's making plenty of money, but the ability to come to MLS, kind of like Messi did, I'm not so sure there wasn't a bigger reason for Messi, the World Cup coming here. Landon continues. I think it would have been a great move for the Galaxy to go out and get Christian, bring him here, pay him whatever you wanted to pay him or whatever he wants, bring an American superstar who has global recognition back to MLS ahead of the World Cup. I think it would have been a great move. And I can hear the Twitterverse going crazy. He's absolutely goddamn right. They're going crazy. My biggest thing is him still going. My biggest thing is he needs to play. I know we all said when he went to Chelsea, he's going to play a lot. He didn't play a lot, especially last year at Milan.
I didn't would think,
yeah, in Milan, I would think he's going to play a lot, but you just don't know. End quote. Listen, they
Welcome
shouldn't
to
allow
competing.
Landon Donovan to drink before he gets on television. That's all I wanted to say. That's all I
Oh
got.
my god, dude! I mean, I've
Landon,
never
what are
heard.
you doing? LD, we love you, dude, but like, what?
It just sounds like a really privileged take of like,
What?
dude? Why go and compete when you can just have everything? And you're just like, yeah, but the one thing he won't have is the thing that's going to make him the best player possible, and that's to be in a challenging environment, right? We know that he could come back. We watched Josie do it. We watched Michael Bradley do it. I get it. Like, we watched Landon go on loans, have success for short periods, and come back. Landon never got the bag like the others did. I think if Landon had come back now, he'd get crazy money at the level that he was at. But I just think that in theory it makes sense. But also, if that was the case and Pulisic went to Milan and didn't play for a year, he'll just do it in a year. Then go and do it in a year. What's the difference? Yeah, like what's the difference? But like, I will say this: there are people.
He's got to regret making that comment. He's going to.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. You know where he's going with that.
I get it. I get it. I understand.
He said that he's like not at his prime yet. The kid's 24. Of course he's not at his prime yet. Like he's 24.
He's got 3 years, 3 or 4 years before he hits his prime.
Yeah, and like I know he's had some injury issues, and maybe that's into the context of all that. But like, yeah, man, I promise you, he's probably going to Saudi Arabia if you're
gonna go from the money. Yeah.
He'll get playing time there, and he'll get whatever he really wants from a financial standpoint.
Like bigger than any bag he's ever had, for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, Landon's gonna give us a hard time if he sees and hears this for busting his balls. But we have to do it. We're former teammates, and that's what you do when you say stuff that doesn't make any sense. But I get, like, in theory, like on paper, of course it'd be great to have an American superstar who's getting closer to entering his prime, really firing everybody up before the World Cup happens here in 26. But the game is so global now and so easily accessible. I think we can all still celebrate what Christian's doing, even if he's playing in Serie A. Speaking of which, that's on Paramount Plus. If you guys haven't subscribed for that, you're going to have to do it now because Christian's going to AC Milan, and that's exciting news. We got other transfer stuff to talk about, but we'll save it for tomorrow. We got a show 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you come back and join us. So on behalf of producer Des, producer Alex, Charlie Chuckwagon Davies, Hollywood Heath Pearce, and me, Conrad Dino, Cream Cheese, Conrad, also known as Jim.
Hey, big crowd
thank
tonight.
You.
Thanks for joining us.
Big
crowd.
Thank you for the guys. Thank you for all your support. We appreciate you. We'll go back and get after it again tomorrow. So that should be a lot of fun. Come back and join us.
You guys were great.
You guys are awesome. We really love you. In soccer, we trust. There's the Trust Fund. And let's do it again tomorrow. Later.